This is a webinar for UVA's Masters of Science in Data Science residential program. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. So the agenda for this webinar is we'll give a quick background on the School of Data Science. We'll allow our admissions ambassadors to introduce themselves. I'm joined by 5 admission ambassadors. Go ahead and wave the current students in the program. And they're here to provide a bunch of information for you about the program and give some examples of projects and things like that so you can get a sense of what it's like as a student. Then we'll talk a bit about the overview of the program. We'll talk about some tips for applying and how the application looks and that sort of stuff. Then the student ambassadors will talk about the workload by semester and kind of what that looks like as a day-to-day student. They'll give some examples of the CAPSTONE project, which is the huge kind of thesis component of your program here that gives kind of a academic paper at the end that you can put your name on. And then we'll talk about career services and outcomes, sports available to students, and then answer a couple of really common questions that we get a lot as an admissions committee. So I'm the Assistant Director of Graduate Admissions here at the School of Data Science. And then we have Felipe, Arjun, Timur, Jeanette, and Burke, who are admission ambassadors. And so a bit about our school. So we call ourselves a school without walls, meaning that it's purposely a collaborative school. Data science is a team sport and it works across disciplines because it touches almost every domain in academia, in industry, across the government. It's really the goal of our school is to help anyone who wants to master data science tools and apply it to a domain they care about, get better at that. And so we have professors who come to us from neuroscience backgrounds. We have education background professors. We have people working in cultural anthropology, a whole across the range of academia and research interests, because data science can be applied to any domain and it's not necessarily domain specific. So we're purposely collaborative and we work across the university and also across disciplines. All right, so now I'm going to turn it over to the ambassadors to introduce themselves and share a bit about their background and why they came to the program. So I guess I can go with Timur first.
Hey everybody, my name is Timur Gulaire. I was an econ major, class of 18 at Yale, and then I worked in federal consulting for a few years. Started drifting more and more into data and then more even data science-y kind of projects in my work, kind of fell in love with it. I realized I needed to learn a lot more to be really good at that. So the way to do that was to go back to school and looked at a lot of different programs. UVA really stood out in terms of the cohort experience and the capstone. So I made a great decision there and I'm enjoying it so far.
Awesome. Thanks, Timur. Jeanette.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeanette Jang. For my undergrad, I went to UVA. I majored in statistics and minored in psychology. I actually graduated this past May. As far as what makes this program unique, it's something that Timur actually touched on. I think the close-knit community that you gain with your student body is like very, very personal because you guys go through all the same classes all the time. And so you guys kind of struggle together and also gain knowledge together throughout the entire year of the program. My favorite class so far has probably been Professor Kropko's class and the summer term, in which he talked about like the data pipeline. I think it's like very, very applicable to like different projects that I see myself working on in the future. As far as like general advice, I'd say, don't be afraid to be yourself, be unique. That sincerity will translate through in your essays and your applications. And so just definitely don't be afraid to be yourself.
Arjun, why don't we turn it over to you because you're sitting with Timur and Jeanette as well.
Sure. Hey, everybody. My name is Arjun Ganesh. I went to UVA undergrad as well. I studied statistics and cognitive science here at UVA, and I kind of chose the program here at UVA specifically to boost confidence in yourselves in terms of a technical interview or the field itself. My background does have a lot of the foundations of data science, but there's a lot of missing pieces that I still need to pick up through this program, and I've been able to do successfully. And so that's kind of my reasoning for choosing the program. My favorite class so far is also Professor Krapko's class. Like Jeanette said, very applicable. And that's like something you'll see in almost every class as to how it relates to the professional world and those topics. And so general advice, yeah, the same thing, always try to be transparent as much as possible as to how you want to intersect data science with whatever you're passionate about. That's kind of like the most important thing. And that's the biggest thing that I'm getting out of this program right now.
Awesome. Thanks, Arjun. Felipe.
Hi, everyone. I'm Felipe. I studied biomedical engineering here at UVA, and I went directly from my undergrad career into this master's program. And I chose this program because I really wanted to expand my skills in data science, learn more of both Python and R, and I wanted to be, prepared when I entered the working world. And I think because of that, my favorite class has actually been statistical learning, where we do a lot of modeling in R, and it's been really cool to see all these new methodologies that I can apply to data sets. And any sort of general advice I would give you is to practice your probability and statistics, because you're going to need those a lot.
And hi, my name is Burke. I was also a UVA undergrad. I did biochemistry. And I chose this program, first of all, data science specifically, because I wanted to be able to apply my knowledge in chemistry and biology to do research in sort of statistical and computer fields. And I chose this program specifically because UVA is unique in the sense that we have our own school of data science. So that's kind of huge. My favorite class so far has also been statistical learning, like Felipe, because it arms you with so many different ways to model different sorts of data. So it's really just making you such a useful candidate in any sort of job that you're applying to. And general advice, especially for applying to the program, think about why you want to do data science. Like Arjun said, take your passions and really anything you can apply data science to and make it clear what you want to be doing with your data science career.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. So a bit about kind of the program and an overview of it. So basically, our curriculum has several key differentiating components, and one of them is a focus on the ethical dimension of data science. So as probably everyone who's watching this has heard, there are a ton of different data leaks and issues with data integrity and ethics across corporations and government and really every sector. And so one thing we try to equip our students with is the skill to be able to think about not only how to use data, but when you should use data and how to do that ethically. So that's not only a standalone class, but it's integrated throughout our curriculum and throughout kind of the way our professors approach teaching data science and thinking about data science. And then, of course, as a data science program, you're able to work with all leading platforms and coding languages, including GitHub, Python, Spark, R, SQL, and Tableau. You get application and knowledge of modeling concepts and practices. So being able to build models that predict different problems within data science and those sort of things, huge component of the program. And then obviously being able to communicate those findings from your models clearly to stakeholders, and then work in a group because data science is a team sport. And when you're working in industry, you're going to be working in a team. And so we simulate that throughout our program through team projects and different experiences where you're working in a group, mostly through the CAPSTONE, which you'll hear more about later. So some other key components of our program, there are 4 prereqs, which we'll talk about later, but those are single variable calculus, linear algebra, which School of Data Science offers as an 8-week boot camp that you can take to fulfill that prereq. It's asynchronous and it's $500, so you can enroll in it at any time and complete it on your own pace. Intro to statistics, intro to programming, and we are GRE optional. The program structure is 3 semesters or 32 credits in total, 12 courses, which equates to 11 months, starting in June and extending to the following May. And some unique characteristics. It's a rigorous lockstep technical degree, meaning that all of the courses build upon each other and you take them in a prescribed sequence so that the skills you're learning at the beginning continue to build throughout the program. Emphasis on ethics and values, which we discussed. Active learning style, not theoretical. So everything we teach is focused on applying it within the field of data science and within industry. And in any job that you would, take after the program, most of your classes take a flipped classroom model where you're learning outside of class through recorded lectures and readings. And then in class, you're engaging in discussion as well as practicing those skills that you learned outside of class. And then it's a small cohort community. As the ambassador said, it's around 50 students, and you really bond with that cohort because you're taking all of your classes together. And you're going through that rigorous lockstep degree all together. You're all in the same classes. You work in the same projects together, and it really is a great space for building community and getting used to what it's like to work as a data scientist on a team. So I'm going to turn it over to Arjun to talk a bit about kind of the curriculum and the skills that you learn as a student.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. So right before we start the summer session, we have a technical boot camp or orientation to kind of just get everybody on the same wavelength, especially during COVID, getting certain softwares up and stuff like that to make sure that you're ready for our summer semester. And our summer semester is composed of 3 classes. The DS 5010 you'll see is our 8-week-long class, while the DS 6001 and STAT 6021 are altered by 4-week courses each. So this helps us as a student really to kind of just get everybody on the same page. Programming for data science is what me and Jeanette were talking about the data pipeline. And this kind of helps you kind of steer through learning Python or getting, a quick refresher on it if you have experience with it, and using that with our STAT class, which is about linear regression, as well as our DS 6001, which is like how to use it in a business sense. So that kind of helps you and get everybody on the same track. So as long as you have these prerequisites, it's important to understand that everybody, the whole point of why we're such a cohesive cohort is that we come from different perspectives. But once we start this fall semester, everybody will be on the same wavelength. And that's really what makes us all successful throughout this 1-year-long process. In the fall semester, a quick overview is 12 credits here. And these classes are all fundamental, as Brian was saying, to building up with each other through the spring semester. These classes right here, biggest emphasis here is your understanding of what the CAPSTONE project is like. You're assigned with 2 to 3 other students alongside your 4 other courses in which you work for 11 months with a sponsor about a real life problem and how to solve it in a data science way. And you're tagged with an advisor throughout the entirety of the program to help you come up with a proper solution, as well as present that at the end of the year. And our other classes here are fundamentals that you will see that are involved in any sort of full-time data science role in industry or even research as well. And the spring semester follows that up with a much lighter schedule where there's more of an emphasis on your capstone while surrounding you with other electives and opportunities to learn more. And this is what we were saying about adding your perspective or your sort of passion. That's not just data science. Is it humanities? Is it linguistics? Whatever it is, this is your opportunity to choose electives that UVA has to offer, which is an extensive amount of elective courses in which data science students can take to kind of like continue that learning and really help you solidify that understanding to say pursue whatever you want in industry once you leave here. But the capstone is really important there as we present our final solutions, as well as do the data modeling part, the data extraction, to then present to the rest of the data science community, as well as your sponsors. And like I said, UVA has an extensive amount of electives offered, and it's not just in the data science school, it's within the College of Arts and Sciences, Education, Commerce School. And so we have some listed up here, and you're also available to look at other selections out for a certain approval by some of our directors of student life here. And we have the main data science courses here are ETA, Exploratory Text Analytics, as well as Big Data Systems. Now, these cover NLP and using big data systems in cloud computing software, as well as utilization of Spark in a data science standpoint. So these are the 2 biggest electives that we offer, as they're reflective of what you will be doing in industry or whatever it is you'll be doing after graduation. But again, we have such an extensive course in just computer science. If you see in the last bullet point, we have over 7 electives in different types of computer science topics, and those are reflective of the rest of the school and the rest of the schools that have their respective classes as well.
Yep. And so kind of your electives are where you build that domain knowledge of where you want to apply your data science skills to, because as we said, data science itself isn't necessarily a discipline. It's something that you apply to a domain that you care about. So a bit more about the capstone. So as Arjun shared, it's a collaborative group project. You're focused on real world application, working on a project that has a context that matters to you, because you get to rank your choices for your capstone project on the ones you're most passionate about working with. It's more than one semester, meaning it's spring and fall. And then it really helps you get really a research publication under your belt. At the end of the program, you get to put your name on a published paper, as well as also really practice the entire pipeline of data science with a real client under the direction of a faculty member and with other students. And the student ambassadors are going to share their capstone projects a bit later. And so you can learn kind of what a typical capstone project could look like. So admit a bit about student profiles, the admission process, and application advice. So some things that we look for in students: problem-solving mindset. Data science is all about solving compelling problems in the world. You have to have working knowledge of mathematical and statistical concepts, and that's assessed through the prerequisite courses that we require. You have to have a high level of quantitative ability in order to engage in this kind of work. You have to really love to communicate and collaborate, because this program is so collaborative, and because data science itself is very collaborative. You have to enjoy that part of the work. You have to have some kind of level of proficiency in programming, and the two main languages we use are R and Python. And then obviously you wouldn't be coming to a school of data science if you didn't love data. And really you need to have a clear reason why you want to come here, so that you can kind of persist through this program that's in a short duration of just 11 months and really have a clear purpose for what you want to do with the degree. So as far as typical backgrounds for MSDS students, really students come from across the spectrum of backgrounds. And so some examples are career switchers. So we've had former teachers come through our program, or people in different walks of life, different careers, who want to pivot to data science and use data science tools. We've had professionals who have worked in the STEM field for a couple of years and want to come to our program, receive a master's in data science, and then start moving up within the STEM field. We have people who just love to code and want to learn more. We have recent college graduates who want an advanced degree, people who've maybe just graduated or been out for a year or two and want a master's degree. We've had leaders with terminal degrees who want to master data science tools. So people who are, in other PhD programs, who can come through our program and learn different data science tools to apply to their research. We've had people who are working in sales in different data science companies and want to understand the product they're selling. We've had people who were put in charge of data science teams and managing teams of data scientists, and really want to understand how they think and be able to advise them accurately. And then also it's a great place for people who are in government positions and want to use data in their work. And then as far as undergraduate backgrounds, as we said, as long as students have the 4 prereqs we require, you can kind of come from any undergraduate background, whether that be astronomy all the way through computer science and math and the typical backgrounds you might think in our program. But really, as long as you have those prereqs and an interest in data science, this is a place for you. So kind of a bit about the application. We'll go through each of these components, but there's a statement of purpose, just kind of like a cover letter for a job. There's short answer questions. We're GRE optional, and we're actually GRE optional. Some schools say that, but then they put maybe applications who don't provide a GRE in a different bucket. We certainly don't do that, and I'll give some more advice on the GRE when we get to the transcript section of this presentation. And then a resume, an unofficial transcript. So the average accepted student GPA is a 3.4. So that can help frame kind of where competitive applicants come from. 2 professional references, and then 4 prerequisite courses. So some tips for the statement of purpose. So really that's where we can kind of see your passion for data science come through. And we can see kind of, you talk about, I'm currently in this spot. I want to learn data science to get to this spot, and these are the skills I need to get there, and this is how I'm going to master them in the program. So that's really what we're looking for. There's a clear reason for pursuing our program and where you want to go from here. And then, so really focus on the program and how it fits into your career goals, why we're something that you're looking for at UVA. Talk about your educational and professional background without repeating your resume. discuss what you can bring to the program and what the program can do for you. You can elaborate, but also you don't want to make it this really long, flowery statement of purpose. You want it to be targeted and really clear. And then obviously talked about what makes you unique and an ideal fit. Things to consider, it's a complement to other parts of your application. It's basically like a cover letter for a job. And then there's an additional 200-word addendum you can use to explain any type of negative influences in your application, whether that be a certain grade in an undergraduate course or maybe a lack of background in STEM type education. You can use that as a way to explain that. So that's its own section, and we take that very seriously to try to think about ways that, you know, applicants can make mistakes, and really we look for that to explain those mistakes and how you've learned for them. But that's its own section, and you don't necessarily need to include that in your statement of purpose. The statement of purpose should center around your strengths and where you want to go. So then the short answer questions, there's several different ones, but the main things we look for in those is you to think about your personal strengths, thinking about how you handle uncertainty, adversity, and difficulties, providing some compelling reasons for why you want a master's in data science. There's a question on your definition of data science and how you see yourself as a data scientist. That one's important to us to see that you have put some thought into what data science is and what that looks like for you. We don't necessarily want you to Google what a data scientist is and copy and paste that in. It's more of a definition from your perspective, what data science is and how you'd use it. And then the short answer questions about your 2 projects are a really great way you can elaborate on your resume and provide some more detail behind some of the coding projects you've worked on, whether that's as a student or as a professional, because your resume is more of a bullet point format. So this allows you to talk a bit more about that, provide more detail than you could on a resume. And then there's a question about all of your informal and formal coding experience. So we really want to hear about everything you've done related to coding. You can link your GitHub page in there as well. And we really do want to hear anything you've done, whether that's, you know, taking several classes, working as a professional in coding, or just doing online coding boot camps and that sort of thing to kind of supplement the prereq coding requirement. So your resume should be centered around experiences in work and school that reflect your ability to handle data science related work. Examples are working with databases, programming, data analysis, other things like that. You're going to try to keep it to 1 page in a bullet point format versus, you know, extending beyond that, because we want to be able to see succinctly kind of students' experiences. And then for your unofficial transcripts and your GRE score, as we said, average student accepted GPA is a 3.4. You're not required to submit a GRE. In some cases, it makes sense. For instance, if maybe you had a lower score in some of your math classes and wanted to show you have high level of quantitative ability, or maybe your undergraduate GPA isn't where you wanted it to and you want to supplement your application, you need to submit all unofficial transcripts for every college you've attended. You only need your official one once you matriculate and are admitted as a student. And then references. So those are people who can speak to your skills, professional and personal. We generally advise that at least one needs to be a professor who's taught you some way. And if you're out of school for several years, that can be a colleague or a supervisor who can speak to your academic aptitude rather than a professor that you might not have had contact with for 10 or 15 years. So we do need 2 submitted references in order to review your application. You can ask for more than 2 to be safe. I would recommend that just to make sure you get 2 in. We're not able to review an application without 2 being in. We do generally give a 1-week grace period after the application deadline for recommenders to submit their letters, but be in contact with us if you need that. And then our online system allows you to ping your recommenders if they haven't submitted your letters yet. So please stay in contact with them and make sure that they're getting their letters in on time so that we can review your application. Okay, so we've talked about the 4 prereqs. Just a little more background on that. We do accept community college courses and online courses for those prereqs, but they can't be non-credit courses like MOOCs or things where you don't get a grade and college credit associated with it. This is what allows us to see kind of your readiness for our program and for the skills that you're going to learn. And so if you have a gap in both coding and math in your prerequisites, and you're currently taking both, it often makes more sense to wait until you've just have a gap in one of those things in math, say, versus having a gap in both, because those are kind of the two main areas we look for in an application is coding and mathematical ability. So if you have a gap in both and you're applying to our program, make sure you have a really clear plan to address that gap. But the best advice would be to wait until you've shored up one of those two gaps and then apply with just one thing missing. So kind of going off that, you can be currently enrolled in a prereq when you apply, but they have to be finished by the time you start the program. And generally, you can be missing one, maybe two, but beyond two is just too much. And you might want to wait until you've taken those courses. All right, so here is a bit about semester workloads based on the perspective of an ambassador. So you can see kind of what you'd expect your workload to look like.
So yeah, I just want to preface that these workloads are estimated based on our experience as just us ambassadors. So Arjun took you through what the different classes we took over the summer were. So basically, the summer isn't going to be too difficult. A lot of the work that you do is going to be in class, but I would say you're going to spend 5 or 10 hours doing homework a week for each of the two classes that you're going to be taking simultaneously, with the hardest one being probably Stat 6021, especially if you don't have a strong background in statistics. You're going to have to spend a lot of time trying to understand the concepts and going through the homeworks to be able to complete them. The fall term is a little different. Things really ramp up in the fall term. I would say the summer term is a lot easier than the fall, especially when it comes to, if you look down to the bottom, DS 6040 Bayesian machine learning. You're going to be spending anywhere between like probably 8 and like 15 hours, because it's a flipped classroom, and 2, we have homeworks due every 2 weeks. And I remember thinking back to the first homework, I probably spent like 12 hours on that homework alone. The other classes, statistical learning is conceptually can be a little difficult if you don't have like a stat background. So you're going to spend some time working on that, but it's not a flipped classroom. And then ethics and CS are both pretty light, and you won't have to spend too much time working on them. And I will note at the bottom, it says capstone. A lot of the main capstone work comes in the spring. So you're not going to be doing too much on a weekly basis in the fall in terms of like workload for the capstone. And the spring term, you can see, is pretty blank. We haven't had the spring term yet, so we can't really speak to it. But what I've heard and what I'm anticipating is that it will be a little bit easier. One, you're taking one less class, but that is kind of replaced with the fact that it's really the crunch time for capstone. So at that point, a lot of people will have their data, and a lot of people will have like what methods they want to implement. So the amount of work that you put into the capstone in the spring is really going to ramp up. I can't really speak to deep learning, and then the 2 electives, they're really up to you. If you know that you're going to have like a busy spring doing other things, you can pick a lighter elective class. Otherwise, you can definitely load yourself up with some tough courses.
So now we're going to go over capstone examples from the ambassadors. So we'll go ahead and go into those.
Yeah, I'll just say the capstone is an awesome experience. Definitely one of the reasons that I wanted to do the program, and you're going to leave this program with pretty much your name on a research paper. So I'll talk a little bit about my capstone, which is predicting Crohn's disease severity and how they'll respond to treatment in pediatric patients. So we have data for pediatric patients, these histology images that you'll see on the right. Basically, doctors will look at this under a microscope, and they're trained to learn to find the areas that might be diseased, and then they can use that to inform their decision to diagnose the child with Crohn's disease or not. But what these images don't tell you is, how that disease will progress over the next 5 or 10 years. So what we're trying to do is come up with an image analysis model that's able to take these images and look at them with more detail than the doctors can. And so hopefully what we want to produce is a model that's able to take one of these images and one, say whether or not they have Crohn's disease, and two, give some information about how that disease will develop over the next 5 to 10 years, which is something that, again, as I've said, that doctors can't even do.
All right, so my capstone was using eBay's marketplace to do some network analysis of all the vendors of antiques. And we're interested in this because there's a lot of space for money laundering and nefarious trades in this market. So we were going to use eBay's API documentation. They provide a lot of that for us data scientists to do all of our analysis, data collection, stuff like that. And the objective for my capstone is to obtain the key pieces of information that are listed along with each item. So this could be like the location where it's being sold from, the seller's information, right, where they reside at, the sort of tags and pricings that are being used to sell these items, and then how they're being described so that we can be informed of how this network functions, what sort of users are present, where they're located, in the hopes of one day being able to map this out and figure out where the antiques are moving to and seeing if maybe we could save some of them.
Okay, I'm gonna get into mine, which I really have enjoyed so far. We're basically looking to do preemptive detection of anomalies in the electrical system in a particle accelerator. So what that means is basically there's this huge particle accelerator that runs these like awesome physics experiments. But in order to do that, you have to have all this crazy machinery with the electrical system. And basically because there's all this machinery, sometimes it goes haywire. And that's a problem for them because they can't run experiments and it's super costly. And right now they really only can tell there's a problem once it's already happened. And in order to prevent some of that costly downtime, they want to see if we can look at the signals from the various sensors throughout this machine and predict whether there's going to be a problem in the next, period of time. And then potentially even can we classify what type of problem it's going to be, because that would kind of inform the response they take. So it's a really fun problem in time series analysis, multivariate specifically. And we've already sort of dived into some of the data and some of the challenges that we have with it. So we have just a ton of information. Reducing it to a smaller set of predictors is something we're looking into. And then also looking at how to deal with the small number of observations, because we only have like 140 different observations of the signal. So really fun problem, and I think we're going to be able to do some great stuff with it.
Yeah, this one's mine. As you can already tell, guys, like we all have like varying different projects and from different fields, and that's what's great about the capstone. First of all, before I go into mine, and that you don't need always extensive prior knowledge on, say, particle acceleration, or for mine, environmental stuff, or Burke's health data, or eBay stuff. That's what's great about it. You work with advisors and sponsors to kind of help you bridge that gap and focus on the data science part. So for mine, it's predicting the direction of groundwater flow, given some geospatial data. So if we look at contaminated sites around the US, we want to be able to predict which way it's going so that we can help people with the cleanup crew clean up efficiently, and so that they don't have to go back and clean up again. That wastes like a lot of money. And so we want to be able to mitigate that. So right now, this company is out in Tysons, Virginia. They have this existing model with them as a business solution. And our main task is to improve this model by getting a certain direction. And you'll see this in my technical workflow image right here on the right. Getting that angle of which the direction will go will help the existing model plot out a sort of geospatial plume to look at where how extensive the groundwater is flowing. So it's really cool because it's sort of an environmental, like conservative kind of project there. And, we'll be using a lot of ensembling modeling since we're updating the existing model to kind of help best with this prediction.
So for my capstone, we're working on creating kind of this sustainable relational database to help Albemarle County Public Schools analyze their K through 12 student well-being, especially, during COVID and the transition back into COVID. And for this capstone, we're going to be able to learn everything there is to learn about database design. Essentially, on the right there, you see a potential schema that my group and I are working towards. And then after this, we're going to be able to kind of create an appropriate data pipeline to, transform the data all the way up to loading the data into the database. And ultimately, we want to be able to host the database on AWS, which is definitely something that is a plus to me in this capstone. I wouldn't be able to work with databases as much as I am in my capstone through the coursework. And so just in general, I'd say the capstone allows us to really apply some of the techniques that we learn in class, but also it's a chance for us to learn about different other topics in data science that we don't necessarily touch upon in class.
Cool. So I'm going to go a bit over different career services and outcomes, and then we'll wrap up with a Q&A at the end. So career support's available to all students. We have 2 full-time dedicated career counselors who just work in our school. Their names are Reggie and Myra, and they provide one-on-one advising appointments, helping you with interview prep and resume review and prepping you for your technical interviews. They provide resources as well, including an alumni database, job postings, workshops, and networking events, both sponsored by our school and sponsored elsewhere, that will help you build your skills for technical interviews and for preparing for those and building connections. And then we also just launched an industry advisor network comprised of over 20 plus advisors in data science industry, and they offer career professional development workshops every week, as well as one-on-one advising meetings to help students, prepare for technical interviews and learn about their background and how they got into the job that they're in, and then how to break in, to the data science market. And it's a really great resource for students as well. And then these advisors really work across government and across the data science industry, representing startup companies as well as companies in the Fortune 300 and beyond, in insurance, technology, finance, healthcare, and beyond that. And so it's a broad network that is as broad as the students that come to our program and as broad as the faculty that we have teaching. So here are some kind of outcomes for our 2020 cohort, the most recent graduated cohort, who graduated during COVID. And so even with that, they still had a very high employment rate, high starting salary, and then some, continued on to go to higher education beyond, a master's in data science, doing internships or other part-time opportunities in other programs. And then you can see kind of where they accepted roles, companies like Amazon, Capital One, Inference, Facebook, Booz Allen Hamilton, Deloitte, Ford Motor Company, UVA School of Medicine, Department of Transportation, the Federal Reserve, all over the place. Just like our students come in from all over the place, they leave into different companies and different industries and areas of expertise, and in the government as well. And then about supports that are available to students. So everyone has access to academic support that they might need to help them succeed in the program. So one key component is free tutoring delivered by peers. It's anonymous. You sign up for it online and you have Zoom tutoring sessions with other people who've gone through the program and who know the content. Group study sessions that we help organize. Our faculty and our TAs are always available for office hours. They're super helpful and they want to help you succeed. So they make themselves very available to help. And then as a student, you have access to the Student Disability Access Center. If you have some form of disability and require accommodations, they're the resource for you. And then counseling and psychological services as a full-time student will support your mental health and emotional well-being. So that's a great resource as well. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to a bit of a Q&A. And so these are questions we often receive as admissions ambassadors and for myself as an admissions representative. So what financial aid options are available? So as a school, we offer limited need-based financial aid for U.S. residents and U.S. citizens and permanent residents only. So if you live in the US and you have demonstrated financial need, you can apply for our financial aid fellowship through indicating you're interested on your application and then submitting a FAFSA application to our school. So that will cover some, but not all of your tuition. And that's a great alternative for many students. Beyond that, graduate school financing is pretty complicated, and there are not a ton for master's programs of different options, but you can search for grants through outside providers, and you're also eligible to use student loans to pay for your education. Some different employers will pay for different parts of your education, depending on incentives and programs they have, but really our main avenue for support would really be either a loan or a limited need-based fellowship. It's based solely on financial need. And again, it's only eligible for US citizens and permanent residents. So is there an application fee waiver? That's another admissions related question. So there is, that is also only eligible for US citizens and permanent residents. There's criteria listed on our website. And if you match those criteria, you can submit an application for the fee waiver and it'll be waived. And then you won't have to worry about that as well. So are there research assistantships and career opportunities? I'm going to let an ambassador take that one.
There's a lot of career counseling for sure. You know, we get a newsletter every single week that has a bunch of opportunities listed for things that you can apply to and stuff. Both career and research assistant opportunities. So I'd say, yeah, things definitely come your way. You're at an advantage being in this program, you know, just being able to be the first person to like see things. And again, our career services help for the students is absolutely awesome. And will, if you don't really know what you want to do and how to accomplish it, they will absolutely help you.
And also, so we have very limited research assistants and opportunities with professors in our department. So that's very rare that you would do that. It's also condensed programs. So typically you don't have much time outside of class to do different work opportunities, but you could work as a student worker, as a research assistant for someone across grounds in any department. Those would be applying through Handshake, our online application system for different job opportunities at UVA. And they wouldn't, again, just like financial aid, they wouldn't cover all of your tuition. You maybe be able to work a max of 20 hours a week, but any student in the program will tell you that's probably way too much and you'd need to work 10 hours or less at the most. But you could go up to 20. Again, that would only really pay for some of your expenses, maybe housing or food, but not all of your tuition and fees. And then how does the residential program compare to the online program? So we get this question a lot. The online program is more for people who want to work full time and pursue their degree part-time. And so that takes 5 semesters or 2.5 academic years as opposed to 11 months for the residential program. So it's really up to students what's better for them. For people who are out of school for several years, the online program often can be more affordable because you can do it part-time and pay for it with their money you're earning as an employee. And then the residential program typically is, you know, for someone who is coming straight out of college or is in an okay financial situation to take on a loan, or is getting it sponsored by a company, or you know, wants to do some more education beyond a master's program, maybe a PhD after or something like that. But the curriculum is exactly the same between 2 programs. It's just different format and different spacing, time duration. All right, so I'll turn this one over to the ambassadors. What makes our program unique?
Definitely think one thing that makes it unique is that we're in our own school of data science. That's something that UVA alone can say that they have. Another thing that makes it unique is just like the blend of hard skills that you're gaining, as well as just like learning how to think about concepts and how to think about data. So you have both sides of the coin where you're able to, you know, think of the best ways to model the data, and then also have the hard skills to be able to implement all of that stuff.
I also want to add on that I think after, just completing summer and fall term, a big part of it is just like the project-based learning that you do. Not in like the traditional sense of like projects, but like there are projects, but you also have like kind of homeworks and you kind of work together as a cohort through them in each class. And I feel like that's very reflective of the data science field in general, in terms of like how you're gonna, or like what types of jobs you're gonna find yourself in. Most likely you're gonna work with a team. And so it's very, very good that they like build that aspect into the entire program to prepare us to succeed in whatever future, whatever industry we find ourselves doing.
Yeah, and then off of that point, I think when you're discussing data science topics or things in the news, with experienced professionals that say have 15 years of experience, or a CEO, whoever it is, or even just a classmate like Timur and Jeanette, I have that confidence that I know what I'm talking about just from this semester. And that boost of confidence is really, really what help you through interviewing, networking, whatever it is, and just reassuring that like the program is doing its best as it can to help you be the best data scientist. And that's why this program is really unique.
Yeah, and kind of as the ambassador said, a critical component that can't be undervalued is the fact that we're our own school and we're the first school of data science in the country. A lot of other programs kind of pull together a data science degree by taking some classes in statistics or computer science or other departments like that, whereas our program is unified. Everything is done by our faculty, and you take all of your classes with your cohort in our school. So it's not like a cobbled together degree where you're learning from people in different departments. It's all one unified degree where the skills build on each other. Another critical component is we're not specific to a domain of data science like business analytics or bioinformatics or something like that. We're a general degree that will give you the skills you need to use data science in any domain you're interested in. So it's not going to make you super niche into just one particular area of data science. And so for age range and background of students, it tends to be, people who are out of school for a few years in undergrad. More in our dual degree programs, we'll have people who've been in the field for several years and are coming back to school to pursue an advanced degree, a dual degree. Whereas in the residential program, it tends to be a younger population who've been working, just a few years and come to our program for an advanced degree. Ambassador, do you have anything kind of to add there?
I think it's important to note that you have that experience with other people because they all come from different backgrounds, and that's what builds the cohesiveness within this cohort. Also, you can, absolutely use each other for networking purposes. And that's the beauty of it, as well as wisdom, guidance, whatever you seek. That's what makes us very unique and makes us very together as a cohort and like all of us successful at the same time. So that individual plus that group component is really what makes our cohort stand out. And that's what helps with the age range and the background of all of us.
I can take a stab at this one. I did econ, which is I think the most humanities adjacent out of everyone here. I think the big things are obviously like the prereqs, especially with like knowing stats and probability pretty well. The biggest thing I would recommend is like when you're submitting an application, show that you've really looked into what data science is, know that well and have played around with it. Whether that was in your job or like side projects that you did on your own, but sort of show that you've done some exploration and sort of are on that path since your humanities background. I think that would help to show that you're a strong candidate.